de test. Test 1, 2.
Good afternoon, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure once again to meet with you and to have this great opportunity to discuss some, indeed, very current issues in our vicinity. This time we will speak about the situation in Georgia, a candidate country of the European Union. And the reason why we are going to speak about Georgia, situation in Georgia, it's an attempt of the ruling party, the Georgian Dream party, to second time to reintroduce a law on so-called transparency on foreign influence bill. So this time with me on this podium, we have Nika Gvaramia, a new chair of political party, Akari.
Yes,
Ahali, which in Georgian means anew. So it's an opposition party, which definitely opposing this bill, and Nika is the best one, to explain it in a nutshell, the situation in Georgia. On my right, I have a long-standing supporter for Georgia's integration into the European Union, reforms, and all good for wishing for that country. Indeed, Anna Fotyga from ECR. I welcome Rasa Yuknyavichina from EPP, again a long-standing supporter of Georgia's integration. There is a kind of attempt to twist the discussion about this foreign interference law, as the ruling representatives in Georgia, in Tbilisi, try to explain it as, it's very Western practice, it's nothing wrong. Meaning the European Union, has something similar. So by reintroducing this law, piece of legislation, Georgia will simply follow the pace of best European practices, and it's wrong. It's nothing about this. So in the EU, we are not indeed following and trying to control NGOs in a way the Georgian Dream wants to do it in its own country. So it's indeed not a European practice. We didn't ask Georgia to do it. So it's simply not European way of moving things forward. So that's why it goes against the candidate status of Georgia. It threatens countries' European path, as simple as this. And I think more colleagues of mine, as I have Viola from Cramon, from Greens, joining this podium as well. So let me to start our short press conference asking Nika to explain what is going on, why again we are speaking about Georgia this time in Strasbourg.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy that we have cause for speaking about Georgia, but cause is not the best one. Last year marked a significant milestone when Georgia achieved candidate status, and thank you very much for that. But government, busy with its own party interests and those aligned with the Kremlin, consistently and willfully, I would underline consistently and willfully, ignores interests of Georgian people, doing everything practically to undermine our EU integration process. We are currently witnessing very troubling legislative changes, and these changes include proposals that dangerously mirror Russian foreign agent law. That's why we call it Russian law, which stigmatizes international non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, and critical media outlets. I would add one more law, that is recent tax legislation, which I call Russian Law 2. And this law gives advantages to wealthy Russian oligarchs, not just Ivanishvili, but all of them, and increases Russian capital influence in our country, thereby making Georgia Russia's gray zone for money laundering and hiding sanctioned Russian oligarchs' assets. Apparently, Georgian Dream government has not complied with critical EU recommendations of yours necessary for advancing our formal membership negotiations. In response to these anti-democratic measures, it is imperative that our EU representatives and international partners take a firm stand. We appreciate the current support from members of European Parliament and European Union officials, and we urge for more decisive actions, including strong personal measures against those undermining our democratic process, and as well enhanced support for democracy movements in Georgia, which is very important, and institutions such as critical media and NGOs. Those are critically important and needed. Upcoming 2024 parliamentary elections are very crucial from historical perspective as well. We are calling for extensive international observation missions to ensure the integrity of the election process. The active involvement of our partners at this critical time is essential to safeguard Georgia's democratic path. It must be mentioned that adoption of Russian law will effectively eliminate watchdogs unwilling to register as foreign agents, and all of them will be unwilling to do so, which in turn undeniably leads to grave problems in legitimacy of the results of election. Current situation in Georgia stands at a critical crossroad. The actions of the Georgian Dream Party threaten not just our European journey, but the very essence of our democracy, very fabric of our society. We call on everyone here and all our partners across Europe and United States to stand with us in defending the democratic values and in helping Georgia realize its European aspirations. As we speak here, Georgians from all walks of life and political backgrounds have taken to the streets marching for their freedom. This struggle includes the youth and the elderly, hardworking parents and brave young leaders. Georgian people are united. Georgian pro-Western opposition parties are united. Georgian civil society is united. Georgian critical media is united around this very important cause. We are hoping for a better Georgia and pursuing happiness with diligence. As once said Jean Monnet, we are neither optimistic nor pessimistic. We are determined to bring Georgia back to the right path and to return to our historic family, Europe, European Union, and build modern democracy and better future for our homeland and our future generations. Main thing which happens now in Georgia is that new generations are with us. More correctly, we are with our new generations. Those people are moving forward our country. It is their homeland. They know it. They need European homeland. They need Europe. They need democracy. And we, Georgian, not so young people, are united around this cause with them. We are pushing them forward into better future, into European Georgia. We don't need Russia. It's not our future. It's not for our future generations. They are very, very hard-working guys, very Western-oriented guys, Western-educated guys. We must prevail. We have no other scenario. We must prevail, and we will prevail. We will win 2024 elections. I mean pro-Western opposition parties, we will change situation in Georgia. We will get membership of European Union. I'm pretty sure in that. I'm profoundly believe in that, and our youth is demanding that. So we have no right to somehow disappoint them. So we will prevail. Thank you very much for having me here. Thank you very much for doing such important things for Georgia. but we need, one more effort for some kind of dramatic changes in Georgia. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Nika. Thank you for your very strong message towards a new Georgia, a European Georgia. I'm sure it will remain on its European course. But to bring you a very clear message from the European Parliament, political parties and groups, you will see different political parties representatives here, which demonstrates a very strong will and cross-party message towards the situation, today's situation in Georgia. And first on my list is Anna Fotyga from ECR. Anna.
Thank you, Nika, Sofia, dear colleagues. We stand here in support of Georgia and Georgian people. Actually, we united previous year over political divisions here in the European Parliament to vote for candidacy status to the EU of Georgia. And it was clearly because of the assessment of the will of Georgian people and acknowledging their long-standing aim to rejoin the Western world, Western structures. Previous year also we saw massive demonstrations of Georgian people against the imposed law, so-called Russian law, because it was simply portraying mirror legislation to actions taken earlier by Kremlin vis-à-vis civil society in the Russian Federation. Now with full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russian Federation, there is consolidation of the collective West, not only the EU, in support of Ukraine, in exposing of vicious authoritarian influence in the Western sphere, in Western democracies. And we see the attempt to impose control on Georgian society, on West-driven Georgian society, while there is the contradictory process in terms of circumvention of sanctions imposed on Russian Federation, in terms of hiding variety of links in sectors of Georgian economy, as well as the links of the sole oligarch there in Georgia to the Russian influence that was so much exposed previous year. And therefore, it is not about the letter of this legislation, it is about processes. And first and foremost, we listen to Georgian people and they protest massively. Therefore, we support them.
Thank you, Anna. We're moving to EPP. Rasa Yuknevichina will speak on behalf of EPP.
Thank you very much. First of all, welcome to European Parliament. I hope in my lifetime, or even much in time we are expecting to come, we will see Georgian representatives here as members of European Parliament. I hope and I wish you to do everything the best. I have mainly three messages to say today. First, for Georgia and Georgians. Georgia needs debenzinization laws, not a Russian foreign agents law, if the country wants to join the EU. This would help clear the country of Kremlin agents. not other agents, not fake agents. I fully support the Georgians protesting against the foreign agents law because this is the road to Russia, not the EU. Second, for Georgian opposition and the whole society, they have very clear aspirations towards European Union. You must unite your efforts. It's not just because I want to teach you somehow or say something you know yourself very well, but it's really an existential time for the region, for the country, and for all of us. No one can be more Georgian than Georgians themselves. Third, more general. We see that last month or last weeks, Kremlin became very active in so-called near abroad. I hate this expression, but just to say how they think, I mean Kremlin. We see that the same messages we are getting not only from former Prime Minister Irakli Garibashvili, who recently mentioned that Georgia is not ready to become a EU member country. This is shocking news, and this is not new, of course, for us who are following the situation in Georgia, but it's very new for the open message from Georgia, from the ruling party. And it is exactly the same what we hear, maybe in a little bit in other words, from Moldova opposition, from their gathering in Moscow. They already did that last weekend. We see very similar measures taken by Kremlin even in countries like Kyrgyzstan, where they are also want to implement the same similar law. So we see that it's not more and more Georgian government becoming more and more like a puppet of Kremlin. I don't afraid to say such a words, because today is the time to express ourselves in a very clear, open way. It's historical time not only for Georgians, but for ourselves here. We see how Kremlin is active in front of European Parliament election, and sometimes we hear the same messages. So I think we must look into very clear criteria. What does it mean? Pro-Russian government, pro-Russian politics in one or another country in Georgia itself. And my last message is, I will quote very famous American proverb. If it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, it probably is a duck. Thank you.
Thank you, Rasa. And I have a privilege to invite Viola from Cramon. Are you going to sing or speak in a normal way? You are a many talented person.
No? Ah, now it works. Super. No, thanks a lot, Petras, again, for organizing this press conference at a very timely moment. And thanks a lot, Nika, for joining us here once again. As you said, the course, Georgia is normally a good course. But today, again, we are thinking of what is the, not just solution, but what is our impact? What could be our contribution to make sure that Georgia does not leave this European track? I have to admit, I was in favor of giving the candidate status to Georgia. Even not everyone in this house, nor in the European institution were in favor. I was arguing for this because I thought, and I'm still convinced, that the Georgian people, the Georgian civil society, and the majority of Georgians, they have deserved that. But now comes the tricky part. Georgian Dream has abused this candidate status for their own purposes. And of course, now it's super difficult how to deal with the situation when exactly Irakli Garibashvili speaks about that maybe Georgia is not in favor of this candidate status. So can we urge from outside to keep the candidate status, to have a conditionality, to have a leverage? Because we know that many people, the majority of the people in Georgia are pro-Western, pro-European, pro-NATO, and even, of course, in the constitution it is founded there. So in this very moment, we need to very focus on integer and transparent elections and the whole legal framework around that. And that is not easy, because what Nika has mentioned is absolutely right. First of all, the foreign agent law is mainly targeted against those NGOs who were in favor of monitoring and observing elections, criticizing the loopholes, the fraud, the abuse of elections, and so on. Of course, the discreditation of the NGOs is going on for some time, but now there comes the prosecution factor to this as well. Second of all, if there will be sanctions after the big fraud and the accusation against Ivanishvili himself, Ivanishvili has to have his instruments on hands, and he has to get his assets and his money back from the offshore accounts. That was the second law for what was voted on last week. What can we do? I think we should come up with the sanctions as soon as possible to make sure that it is really targeted against those who want to transform Georgia in a different way, who want to transform and who want to build Georgia according to a Russian model. This is not acceptable. And second of all, of course, we should not be fooled by Georgian Dream. If you remember the last visit of the Prime Minister to Berlin, I don't know who followed that, but in the end, he could not stand critics. He could not stand critics from the German Chancellor, and he blamed the poor interpreter for not translating right the text and the speeches right, and the Chancellor didn't fully understand what actually was meant. I mean, come on, we are professionals, and we know exactly what's going on. We observe very, very closely what's going on in Georgia, and we will not be fooled by Georgian Dream, no matter how blunt they try again and again. And thank you for coming here. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for helping Georgia. I mean, as Anna has said, we are very much committed. We are very much united, and we will fight for Georgia to keep on this European track. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Viola. As from yesterday, we have received a letter, a joint letter of the opposition politicians in Georgia, members of Georgia's parliament, and they ask for very concrete, steps to be taken against those who come with that, indeed, very Russian style of foreign interference. I think this is a very strong call, so we will consider this in due time, and definitely, as you know, will be a resolution on this issue adopted in the end of our last session in Strasbourg. Now we have debate indeed. So we have 5 minutes for any questions you have. I have 1 second noticed. Please introduce yourself and
yeah. Tavari TV, Nina Samkurashvili from Tbilisi, Georgia. First of all, I should ask you all of you, the Europarlamentarians, please, how the problematic for the Georgia, this law, if it will be adopted, and this means that it will be problematic for Georgia to open the negotiations with the European membership, and at the same time, what will be the response from the international partners of Georgia, and waiting or not the Georgian Dream, the sanctions? Thank you.
who wants to take this question? Anna?
Just very quickly from my side, there is no chance that we can open negotiation or accession talks if this laws will not be, if this law will not be withdrawn. So, I mean, you cannot contradict the European values with this kind of law and then asking for becoming a member. That is, from my perspective, impossible. So I would ask for withdrawing the candidate status, of course.
On behalf of my group, I am sure I can say on behalf of my group, no way to get any negotiations, to start negotiations with such a behavior, with such a loss, with such a pro-Russian politics. Thank you.
Yes, of course.
As well. Thank you. I must say that with hesitation, but I am still for the candidacy status of Georgia, because once more this round even once more proves the will of Georgian people. And I hope that this will is to be expressed clearly in upcoming elections. We intend to observe elections, to ensure that every item is properly indicated in the Western observation, but certainly the problem is there. I urge the government of Georgia to listen to Georgian people. There are massive protests, we see it, and therefore there is really very strange to reintroduce a law that was so much contested by the majority of Georgian society.
I mean, to be frank, this law, not to mention the law on taxation, what Nika mentioned in particular, it's another very serious case, but on foreign interference law contradicts at least 2 steps out of 9 which were made clear for Georgia to sustain candidate status. How come you expect, I mean, moving forward if you don't comply with the present conditionality? So it's a very serious hurdle on the way of Georgia to the European Union. Madam.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to remind everyone that it's a press center, so 15 minutes for presentation and 15 minutes for questions. Just, it's not a space for campaigning, to remind everyone. And my question is about the law, because in the United States, or many Georgians look upon the United States political system as exemplary, as many others in post-Soviet states. And my question is, what's the major difference between American Foreign Agents Registration Act and this law? Because many people ask this question.
Nika, can you start?
As a US educated lawyer and as a Georgian, I know both laws. First of all, the FARA, so-called FARA, is against Russian. It is in the 30s of 20th century. I mean, adoption of this law. It's anti-Russian, anti-communist, and anti-fascist law, anti-Nazi law. So that's determination of this law is against malign influence of the countries who are against democracy. In our case, this is law against Western society, against Western democracy. It's determined like that, and no one hides in Georgian government that the main target of this law is Western society and NGOs who are financed by Western foundations and funds. So definitely those 2 laws are against democracy and pro-democracy. There is no labeling as agent in FARA. I mean, there is word agent, but in our case, agent or foreign influence agent means absolutely different thing. In our use, word agent from USSR perspective, Soviet Union perspective, means something similar with KGB agent. There is no other understanding of this word in Georgian use, in Georgian language. So that's why it's a label they want to stick up with NGOs. And it's, that's very dangerous label for us, any of us. And no one will register, simply at that. If no one will register, so that means that they will be closed down in the nearest future. So there will be any possibility of make clear some corruption activities or transparency. That is, in particular, it is an anti-transparency law in reality. So there will be no NGO who can clarify transparently what happens in Georgia government, what happens with corruption in Georgian government. There will be no missions observing elections, I mean internal missions as well as international missions, because no one will register as a foreign agent in Georgia, including international actors. So that is what will happen, providing this law.
Thank you, Nika. And finally, Anna, a word or two.
Russian Federation is a country waging the war of aggression against a sovereign neighboring nation, willing to live peacefully. For many years, we used to monitor actions taken by Russia, and therefore we indicate the context and policies accompanying introduction and reintroduction of the Russian law, so-called Russian law in Georgia, being afraid that it is clearly to mirror path taken earlier by Russian Federation in intimidation of civil society while elevating the mafia run state and KGB, former KGB run state. We would like Georgian society to avoid this kind of fate. We feel bond with freedom-loving Georgian people, and that is why we support them.
Thank you all. So follow the events, will be more to come. Thank you.